In this WrestleTalk news, Brock Lesnar has seemingly been pulled from WrestleMania Backlash, a former WWE talent joins AEW, Ollie's review of last night's Dynamite, and more. Subscribe and enable notifications to always on for daily wrestling news videos.
Support WrestleTalk!
It's everyone's favourite premium live event at the start of next month. It's WrestleMania Backlash, where you normally see just so many rematches from WrestleMania. And heading into this year's show was no different, as the advertising for the show highlighted some of the biggest names such as Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair, who will be having a rematch, Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch, who won't, and Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, which naturally led people to think, uh-oh, are those two having a rematch as well? Even if they weren't planned for it, Lesnar being advertised for the show was still significant, as it could reveal his next step after losing to Reigns at WrestleMania 38. Dave Meltzer even originally reported that Lesnar was booked for both WrestleMania Backlash and Money in the Bank in July. However, Lesnar has now been removed from the advertising for WrestleMania Backlash on WWE.com, meaning more likely than not, he won't be appearing on the show. I guess it makes a nice change of pace for WWE to actually remove him from the graphics and such, rather than just insinuating he'll be there, and then he isn't. But what will Lesnar be doing when he does come back? Just go right back to Roman again? Maybe he'll join the Money in the Bank match and win the briefcase in a match he isn't in again? That was fun the last time he did it. No complaints there at all. There have been a huge number of massive AEW debuts over the past couple of years, but some of the biggest don't get the biggest fanfare because they happen backstage. And AEW has just scored a huge producer for their company in the form of former WWE producer Pat Buck. Buck worked at WrestleMania 38 and produced both Ronda Rousey vs Charlotte Flair and Brock Lesnar vs Roman Reigns, arguably two of the biggest matches across the whole event, and then left WWE, which he said at the time was to spend more time with his family after he achieved his goal in WWE of producing WrestleMania main events. However, according to Mike Johnson of PW Insider, Buck was working backstage at last night's AEW Dynamite. I guess those 10 days or so with his family was enough. This is honestly a huge get for AEW and a blow to WWE, as Buck quite transparently now has left WWE to join their competition. It's one thing for wrestlers to do it, but for backstage staff to be tempted that way now too marks a definite change in dynamic. But it definitely isn't all bad news for WWE, as their UK premium live event is set to do huge ticket sales. WWE announced they were coming to the Principality Stadium in Wales on September 3rd yesterday, and according to TalkSport's Alex McCarthy, more than 59,000 fans have already pre-registered for tickets for the show, which is a new company record, meaning that's higher than any WrestleMania in history, which is kind of absolutely bonkers. The stadium itself regularly holds a capacity of around 75,000, so expect to hear about the 100,000 plus fans in attendance that night. I jest, but that is genuinely huge for WWE, and it's great to hear that there's so much interest in UK shows. Now just follow suit, AEW. Just give us an all out in the UK, that's all I'm asking for. And now hot tag to Ollie.
Thanks for your support on Patreon, Abominable Michael Abbott and the Cyclone Brandon Sires. Just before I get into my AEW review, I just want to address the trend in the comments this week after Monday's news episode. Comments like,
"Well done, Andy. Still in awe at the great job you did on Monday. Seriously, I actually really liked Andy hosting the news. Would like to see him host WrestleTalk News some more. Blah, smiley face emoji.
And well done, Ollie. Oh,
You almost did as good a job as Andy."
Voice delivery was totally accurate there. I have now conducted an independent study that has confirmed all of these people aren't real individuals, it's the goddamn bots! Look closely, these aren't real people! Now it's time for my review of ROH Dynamite in about 5 minutes. As if last week's match of the year candidates of the Bucks versus FTR2 and Wheeler Yuta versus Jon Moxley wasn't enough last week. This had Samoa Joe versus Murder Grandpa Minoru Suzuki for the ROH TV title, a tag title match of Jurassic Express versus Red Dragon. Tony, you know, Battle of the Belts is on Saturday, right? And our opening match for the World Championship of my heart, CM Punk versus Pentagon Jr. Don't make me choose, Tony. Although the correct answer is Eddie Kingston. The New Orleans crowd were incredibly hot for dueling Zero Miedo chants and CM Punk chants from the start, and the two had a really exciting match based around Punk tweaking his knee, but using his adrenaline to hit the GTS to win. This was perfectly designed to keep Punk's world title shot momentum going. It'll be your time soon, Penta. That was followed up right away by another really great match of Red Dragon versus Jurassic Express for the tag team titles. It was paced messy from the start with some great near falls, but the champions retained very clean in about 10 minutes. It was a really fun match to watch, but zooming out, it feels like Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish aren't actually credible title contenders. So when in doubt, throw some ROH titles into the mix. FTR, draped in their ROH and AAA tag title glory, came out to confront Red Dragon afterwards, seemingly finally kicking off their feud that's been building in the background for weeks. It's a shame the preceding loss doesn't make Red Dragon feel like a real threat though, and Jurassic Express continue to feel like the 4th or 5th most important team in AEW despite being their tag champions. Because the number 1 guys are Moxley and Danielson, who'll be teaming with their new violent friend forever Wheeler Yuta against the Gun Club this Friday. We'll be getting Tony Storm versus Jamie Hayter in the first round of the Owen Hart tournament, and in the best angle of the night, we've then got that excellent next installment of MJF versus Wardlow via MJF versus the Captain Shawn Dean. Trying to avenge one of the only AEW losses on his record, Max beat up the Captain, but was immediately interrupted by a cameraman on the Tron showing 3 taken out security guards backstage. It looked more like it was the night after a heavy sesh. Security guys like to party. Take his shirt off. In a fantastic bit of misdirection considering that and the last few weeks, we didn't get another backstage shot of Wardlow. He just unveiled himself behind MJF in the crowd. Wardlow chased Max, but Spears hit him with a chair and loads of security guards restrained him. But brilliantly, this stopped MJF getting back in the ring before the 10 count, which Bryce Remsburg made despite Max's protests. Shawn Dean got another win over MJF. Wardlow assaulted more security backstage and screamed for Max to release him from his contract, and MJF later replied saying he's going to start booking him in matches. First up, The Butcher. This is a fantastic next direction for their feud, and Wardlow is getting so organically over. Darby Allin set up a coffin match against Andrade next week, and Malachi Black is still feuding with Fuego del Sol of all people. I feel like that's a bit of a waste of the House of Black. And what about Julia Hart? I seriously think the House of Black have forgotten about her. Then after footage from earlier in the day where LAX attacked JAS on site at an airport, they wrestled JAS while mostly respecting the rules of a 6-man tag. Eddie Kingston, Santana and Ortiz's intensity was excellent, but their on-site promo building this match from last week suggested a wild brawl. Instead, it was 90% legal tags, which Daniel Garcia won when Jericho hit Kingston with the bat. The match felt out of place with the feud's intensity, and would have been better served with Jericho demanding sports entertainment rules or something to be put in place to protect them. Marina Shafir versus Sky Blue was more about all the people watching Maria Shafir versus Sky Blue. The baddest section, which is still cringy, now included Red Velvet, potentially signalling a heel turn after she keeps getting booed, and Jade Cargill was just ignoring the monitor backstage. Sadly, the crowd kind of were too, and were deathly silent despite being insanely hot all night. They were right back alive for their hometown boy Ricky Starks next, as he tagged with Powerhouse Hobbs against Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland. It's a difficult position for the babyfaces to be in, wrestling against the popular hometown heel, but they were so good, including a swerve moonsault to the outside of Keith Lee's chest, that the crowd just cheered everyone. But just like all their stuff on Rampage, I feel like it was Hobbs that stood out most again. Taz tripped Lee for Powerhouse to get the pin, making it 1 win apiece for the Hosses. The big go home angle for Thunder Rosa versus Nyla Rose was Nyla getting cake in her face. Tony Khan will make a huge announcement next week. Oh god damn it, he's probably bought TNA too. And with 20 minutes left of the show, plus pre-advertised overrun, which was probably in place just so we got a full Suzuki entrance, we got another one of the best matches of the year. Samoa Joe versus Minoru Suzuki. I say match, but I actually mean 2 men preparing chest hand, because Joe and Suzuki spent about 90% of the match chopping each other's chests with increasing intensity and maniacal grins. There's not much else to recap, but it was still incredible. You could see people in the crowd actively hulking up off of the violence. Joe eventually hit a muscle buster to become the new ROH World TV Champion. And I wish that was where the show ended, because despite being an AEW ROH co-production, it sure did feel like a WWE finish. Joe didn't get any time to properly celebrate, as Jay Lethal and Sanjay Dutt revealed their big surprise, a lights can out spot for a very tall man to stand behind him and take Joe out. Excalibur then told us this was the 7'2" former basketball player Satnam Singh, who proceeded to squeeze Joe's head for the remaining few minutes of boring beatdown. It's the first time I've ever thought, Vince McMahon would probably enjoy this bit, and that's not what I want from AEW. The crowd were also said to be a mixture of annoyed and laughing at the reveal. What did you think of AEW Dynamite? Let me know in the comments. In-ring wrestling wise, this was on its way to being one of the better episodes of the year, but it's how you leave them, folks. And unfortunately, my final image is of Satnam Singh, not Joe winning the ROH TV title. This is a 90% show that ended up being at 82%. Now find out about the anger backstage in WWE over a controversial firing.
In this WrestleTalk news, WWE stars were upset over the firing of Nash Carter, Tommaso Ciampa has some interesting comments on his main roster call-up, Tempest review of NXT, and more. NXT Stand and Deliver saw controversy spring up after MSK won the NXT tag titles in a triple threat against the Creed brothers and Imperium.